Now, throughout the coronavirus pandemic, we've talked on this program about some of the consequences of lockdown that may not be immediately obvious. For example, apparently inquiries about egg freezing at fertility clinics have jumped by 50% compared with the same period last year. So what's behind that? I guess if we think about it, we can start to work it out. For many people, dating in any kind of normal way, finding somebody has been put on hold by lockdown. Others have found themselves unexpectedly in a period of enormous financial insecurity. So it's not the time to have a child. And for some, all the extra thinking time may just have made them realize that, yes, they'd like children in the future and they need to take steps. I wonder if you think, yes, that's me. If you're somebody who's taken the step of having your eggs frozen or it's gone through your mind, we'd love to hear from you. We'll hear a bit more about how you do it because this technology, again, is changing all the time. Do email vine@bbc.co.uk. Enclose your phone number if you don't mind and we'll try and get back to you. Text us 88291. Let's speak first to the head of Create Fertility. They run fertility clinics across England and Wales. Professor Geeta Nargund, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Jeremy. How are you?
I am pretty well in the circumstances. Thank you so much. It seems as if you are getting a lot more inquiries. Is that right?
Yes, indeed. That is true. We are getting a lot more inquiries. There's a lot more interest in egg freezing during the pandemic and during the lockdown. And I think you actually state some of the reasons why that might be the case. That's absolutely true.
Well, it was really guesswork at my end. I don't know whether you have your customers tell you their reasons or whether that's not something you ask.
Look, a couple of things. First of all, the egg freezing has been on the rise anyway, which is true. But there has been an increased awareness about egg freezing and its success and the advances in technology. But during the pandemic and lockdown, some of the reasons you said is true because we do ask our patients not being able to date, women reevaluating what really matters in their lives, wanting to be a parent, the clock ticking faster for women who are in their late 30s and really worried about uncertainty and probably, losing out on biological motherhood. And we have also listened about some couples where a partner works abroad and the whole lockdown has made it very difficult for them to meet and try. Some couples have broken up due to the stress of the pandemic and women are wondering, am I going to lose out? So these seem to be the reasons why there's increase in inquiries.
And I mean, you do offer a solution really to people who feel that time is short.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, egg freezing, particularly with the newer technique, flash freezing, has been a real advance because you were talking about science just before we started this, real scientific advance, which is giving women an option and a choice if they're not ready to start a family, not to lose out so that they can preserve their fertility and potentially consider having a baby in the future. It's not a guarantee, it is not an insurance policy, but it's definitely an option. And the choice women have long needed, and it's here now.
Thank you very much indeed, Professor Geeta Nargund of Create Fertility. Let's speak to Hendy, who's author of the book Everything Egg Freezing, the essential step-by-step guide to doing it right. Catherine, first question is whether what's happening with the law on it, because there were potentially changes, weren't there, which allowed you to freeze them almost indefinitely.
Yeah, that's right. So there's a campaign at the moment, which is the hashtag Extend the Limit campaign, to kind of remove that arbitrary 10-year storage limit that exists in the UK at the moment. It's one of the only countries in the world that actually has that, and there's no scientific reason for it. And it's kind of adding to this sense of people sitting on the fence about freezing their eggs because they kind of think, well, I'll leave it a bit longer then if there is this limit. I don't want to kind of max that out. And actually it's kind of contributing to people freezing later than a lot of doctors would recommend.
That's interesting. Now, what would be the ideal time to harvest your eggs and freeze them if you could choose?
Well, that's a really difficult question. So writing the book, we interviewed like many people about this to get their personal opinion. But if you speak to doctors, they would say earlier than 30 biologically, but practically, maybe around 30. Actually, I think there was some researchers from an American university who did a cost-benefit analysis of the likelihood of people actually going back to use their eggs. And they found 37 was the sweet spot for you're probably, you're likely enough to need to use these in an IVF cycle in the future to justify the cost. But having said that, that is kind of pushing it in terms of, your likely outcomes from them. So most people are kind of saying 33 to 36 might be a great age to do it.
So because I heard someone say the best time is 16, because that's when it's really easy to do it. But of course, if you've got a 10-year limit, then that's not going to work.
Yeah. I mean, also then there's kind of, what are your life goals? How's life panning out? I don't think it's the right thing for absolutely everybody to do it. I did it at 32 because I was single and, didn't want to be in a big rush, racing against the biological clock. Some people do it as we were just hearing, some people in relationships are doing it, particularly during lockdown, because people are thinking, is this a great time to bring a child into the world? People don't necessarily want to go near hospitals at the moment. And also there's the big thing of a lot of people are finding themselves single and not able to date. And it's kind of, they hit that inflection point where they think, okay, we might be out of this in 6 months or a year's time, but 6 months or a year's time, if you're 37 and you know that your fertility is declining with every passing month, feels actually like quite a big deal.
When you went and did it yourself, can I just ask you the rough cost?
Yeah, I actually did it overseas, partly because of that storage limit and also partly because of costs. So for me, it was a lot cheaper. It was more like £2,000 or £3,000, but actually in the UK, I think the average now is something like £6,000 or £7,000.
And you have two stages, I guess. There's the freezing, and then there's the retrieval and the unfreezing, and the fact that you then need to go through IVF, and that can be a bit of a lottery as well.
Yeah, so I mean, freezing eggs, the intention is hopefully never to need to use them. The first prize would be to conceive naturally, to conceive unassisted. But it's just if that doesn't happen, then if you do need to go to IVF, using younger, previously frozen eggs just gives you far higher success rates. So let's say I froze my eggs at 32, I'm now 35, and I'm in a relationship. If we potentially have a first child together, maybe that goes smoothly, but what about a second child? I could be nearer to 40, and using my 32-year-old previously frozen eggs would give me a radically better shot in that IVF cycle than using my fresh eggs at 40.
Thank you very much, Catherine Hendy, author of Everything Egg Freezing, the essential step-by-step guide to doing it right. Maybe you recognize this story of the person, it could even be you, who in the middle of this awful lockdown period is thinking, wait, I am going to lose my chance to have a child if this carries on much longer, so I'm going to look at this option.